All right, welcome to our Streets of New Capenna sealed set review. Remember, these evaluations I'm making are just for sealed. They're not for draft. They're not for standard. They're not for alchemy. Only for sealed. I consider myself a sealed aficionado, and no one else really does it. So I'm the best. That's what I call myself. But I am pretty good at it. And I'm here to offer my insight on what this new set is going to do because all the competitive events are going to be sealed for limited. If there is a top 8, it's going to be draft, or a day 2, there's going to be draft. So so you have to be able to get there, right? And sealed is going to be it's very different than draft. Some sealed knowledge transfers over to draft, but draft knowledge generally does not transfer over to sealed because in sealed, you get 84 cards. And there aren't really archetypes. There's just the 23 best cards of the 3-color combination that you opened. So, there's like a black, red, green sacrifice theme that's present that you can maybe draft around. That's not going to be present in sealed. So it's much more about it's about the basics. It's about 2-for-1s, which are I spend 1 card and I kill 2 of my opponent's cards, or I spend 1 card and I draw 2 cards from my deck, or bombs, like rares that your opponent needs to remove, or they just take over the game. Sealed is much more about those than it is anything else, and that means that you generally don't play 1 and 2 drops, or at least not very many of them. You generally play between 17 and 21 mana sources. You generally play a lot more mana in your decks. And you generally don't need to play bad cards, because if you've drafted before, you have a lot of bad cards in your deck. And sealed, you have maybe 2 bad cards in your deck most of the time, because if a color combination isn't good enough, you just don't play it. So if you're playing your 23 best cards from 3 different colors, there's really no reason to play a bad card, because you don't have to. So we're gonna go into that. So first I'll go into what the packs are going to contain. Now these vary from set to set. Sometimes there's double-faced cards. Sometimes there's not a basic land. There's like a dual land instead of a basic land. That's not the case here. This is back to the original set contents for a pack, which is there's 1 rare or mythic per pack. There's 3 uncommons. There's 10 commons. There's 1 basic land in every pack, and there's a 33% chance 1 common is a foil of any rarity. It could be another common, it could be an uncommon, it could be a rare. My understanding is that it can't be another basic land. I know that they used to be able to become basic lands. I don't think that's the case anymore. There are going to be some themes. There's going to be 5. This set is about 3 different color combinations. And let's go into what the themes are going to be. I want to say this in advance that these 3 color combinations have been present before in Magic, and I'm probably going to not refer to them as their new name, but that's okay. So the first one we're going to see is Brokers. So green, white, and blue. This is Bant. If I ever say Bant, I mean Brokers. And they're about protection and control. So they have shield counters, which is a new mechanic. And it's a type of counter that is put on a permanent. And then it basically says, I know there's a paragraph here. It basically says, it's like a regeneration shield, almost, right? If that permanent would be destroyed by an effect, instead remove a shield counter. So if I were to terror it, or if I were to lightning bolt your 3/3, it would not be destroyed. But not just because of that. There's 2 parts of it. The first part, if a permanent would be destroyed, like by a Wrath of God, I suppose is a better example. Destroy all creatures. Then remove a shield counter instead of destroying it. Right, so my creature is a 2/2 with the shield counter. You cast Wrath of God. My creature is a 2/2 with no shield counter afterwards. Interesting to note that it seems to work even on my own effects, which things like Hexproof do not. So if I have a shield counter on my creature and I cast Wrath of God, it still stays in play, and I have a 2/2 with no shield counter. And the other thing is, if a permanent with a shield counter would be dealt damage, that damage is prevented and a shield counter is removed from the permanent. So that means if I have a 3/3 and I attack and you block with a 3/3, afterwards I have a 3/3 with no shield counter, and you have a dead 3/3. But the other side of this is that I have a 3/3 with a shield counter. I attack, you block with a 1/1. I now have a 3/3 with no shield counter. That's the joke, right? Is you can, if you throw something in the way of a shield counter creature, it actually just like removes that shield. Something to keep in mind, which it is present in the set, is that it uses the word prevention. There's red effects in the game that state that damage cannot be prevented. However, I'm not sure how that works with the shield counter. I'm going to guess that it does kill the creature, because otherwise, why would they do it that way? Yeah, -1/-1 counters kill through shield counters. Anything that's a state-based effect would actually bypass shield counters. So if there was something that, for instance, gave every creature -1/-1 until end of turn for every mana you paid into it. So, well, maybe, yeah, can't be prevented, deals the damage, and also removes the counter, but it also kills it, right? So I have a 3/3. I have a 3/3, and you deal 3 damage that cannot be prevented. The shield counter is removed, and it still dies. Is my understanding. And my understanding is that Meathook Massacre bypasses this entirely, which is a big punt, because Meathook Massacre is the most played sweeper in the format. So, hooray. I'm moving on to Obscura. Moving on to Obscure, we have Connive, which is, if a creature you control is instructed to connive, you draw a card and discard a card. If you discard a non-land card, you put a +1/+1 counter on the creature that connived. Well, pretty simple mechanic. It's similar to like Learn, basically, which is draw a card, discard a card. Learner was discard a card, then draw a card, right? But you also get a counter if you discard a non-land card. Cool. Pretty simple mechanic. From what it says put a +1/+1 counter on the creature that connived. So this is only going to be present on only creatures, is what it looks like. Although they probably have connive-esque effects in the set that are not actually on creatures, but have the same text as connive. You know, like draw 1, discard 1. If you discarded on a non-land, put a counter on a creature you control, right? Like, there's probably a spell that has connive but doesn't actually have the word connive on it. And that's Esper colored, which is white, blue, black. It's Obscura. I'm not going to say it, probably. So next we have Maestros, which is sacrifice and removal, casualty. As additional cost to cast a spell with casualty, you may sacrifice a creature with power N or greater. Okay. When you start putting N or greater, people's eyes just glaze over. Where N is the number that appears after the keyword. If you choose to do so, a triggered ability triggers that copies the spell. Okay, so that was a lot of words. That has a variable in it. People's eyes gloss over. That's fine. So there's a 2-mana instant. For instance, say there was a 2-mana instant that said deal 2 damage, and it had casualty 2. What that means is I pay 2 mana, and I cast it, and I choose my target to do 2 damage to. When I'm choosing that as an additional cost, when I'm paying my cost for the spell, I can choose to sacrifice a creature with power 2 or greater sacrifice implies it, but a creature I control with power 2 or greater. If I do, I put a copy in the stack, which means if your opponent has a counterspell, they have to counter 2 things that they want to counter the entire effect, right? So then, and you don't have to choose the same target. You can choose new targets for the new spell. So if your opponent has 2/2/2s and you have a connive, or not a connive, I'm sorry, you have a casualty 2 card that deals 2 damage, you can pay 2, target 1, sacrifice a creature in addition to the cost, and then target the other one. So inherently resilient to counter spells, which is cool. And this is on a bunch of different cards in a bunch of different ways, and the output is really varied. And so this is actually a really complicated mechanic, even though it doesn't seem it. There's actually a black common that's extremely weirdly worded that works out very strangely with a casualty. There's also like a casualty X card in the set. But we'll get to that when we get to it. Next is the Riveteers, which is going to be black, red, and green. This is a really simple mechanic, which is Blitz. Casting a spell for its Blitz cost has several effects. This creature gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card, and at the beginning of the next end step, you sacrifice the creature. So this was actually similar to an effect they've done in the past. Was it Rush? I don't quite remember. It was on red and green cards, right? Where they would do his dash. Okay, it was dash, and then return to your hand instead of dying. Here, it looks like instead of returning to hand at end of turn, they die and you draw a card. Of course, what that means is that they're generally perhaps even cheaper or more expensive, I guess, depending on the card. But it allows you to cash in effects. Creatures that have entered the battlefield's abilities can now have, like, you can play your 3-mana 3/3, or you can blitz it, have a 4-mana 3/3 that draws a card when it, and like if you don't need a 3/3, you can just like, quasi cycle it type deal. Well, it'd be interesting how this plays out and whether it's costed appropriately on the cards. Also another creature-centric one. And the other one is Cabaretti, which is red, green, and white. I might say Naya. I probably will say Naya. Alliance, an ability word. An ability word means it's a fancy way of saying it doesn't mean anything. Alliance doesn't mean anything. It's just something like, instead of having this huge spiel that says, whenever you have another creature enter the battlefield under your control, do this. You just say Alliance deal 1, right? And then you know what that means. So that's what it means when it says an ability word. It's a word that doesn't actually mean anything. It's an ability word that an instructor, when another creature enters the battlefield under your control, the effect differs per card. Right. It's creature fall. Right. That's a good way to put it, Adventure. Good call. There's landfall, which is whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, do you have an output? Right. This is creature fall. Doesn't count itself. That'll count your other creatures. If somehow you have 2 creatures enter the battlefield at the same time that have alliance, they see each other but not themselves. So that's going to be it for the intro. So let's go ahead and move over to our normal set review. All right, it being a multicolored set, multicolored focus set, it makes sense to start off with the gold cards to get an inkling on what each color combination is trying to do before we got onto the monocolored cards. So let's start with the commons. So there's 10 commons. The first one is Body Dropper. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, put a counter on Body Dropper. And you can pay 2 mana to give it mana. So you're probably not going to use that ability very often. It at least is not sorcery speed only. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, so that works with Casualty. Whenever you cast a Casualty spell and sacrifice another creature, put a counter on this. This card's probably fine. I don't envision it being incredible. Oh, Blitz? Okay, I got you. So black, red, green cards have Blitz, which you sacrifice in a turn as part of Blitz. I see. It's probably a fine card. It has a lot of text for a common. It is a growing... It'll probably be a 3/3 every game for 2 mana. It just won't be a 3/3 on turn 3 or turn 2. It'll probably be a 3/3 at the end of turn 4. You're going to blitz something maybe. Although, how often are you actually going to blitz on turn 3 or turn 4? Probably not, right? You're probably going to blitz on turn like 5, 6, or 7, right? So maybe this isn't going to be more than a... This is probably not going to be 3/3 before turn 5. That doesn't seem... That does not look great. Maybe we'll come back to this and it looks greater. Yeah, it doesn't say once per turn. It is kind of weird that they have like onboard combat stuff like this. Let's put this as a 4 for now, because I generally don't like 2-mana 2/2s. Seems like a pretty medium minus top deck as well. Yeah, Celestial Regulator, 3-mana 2/3 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you choose target creature you don't control and tap it. If you control a creature with a counter on it, the creature doesn't untap. Okay, so it's Frostlinks. It's a flying Frostlinks that doesn't always work. I mean, the fact that it's just a flyer, 3-mana 2/3 flyer, I mean, those are decent stats. This seems like it's a pretty reasonable card. You wouldn't play a 3-mana 2/3 like no text, which I think a vast majority of the time, if you play it on turn 3, it's not going to have a text box. So I guess it's more on turn 6 or turn 7, it'll probably be a pretty good card. That's pretty good for a 3-drop. It's like okay on turn 3, and it gets a little bit better as the game goes on. I'm not a fan of Frostlinks just because the Frostlinks effects are 2 and a blue 2/2s that have this type of effect. And people love playing them, and they're mostly unplayable and sealed. But this one is a bit better than that. It's just on a 2/3 body that has flying is by itself way better than a 2/2 without flying. Well, I guess it depends how fast this format is and whether like a 3-powered blocker on turn 3 is like a reasonable thing to be happening, or whether just a bunch of 3-power, like, you know, Body Dropper is a type of card that our very first card that, you know, if they went 1-drop into Body Dropper and they attacked you on turn 3, you couldn't really block, right? Because they threatened the activation of becoming a 3/3. All right. And I think that's something I didn't really go into when I talked about Body Dropper, is that like the threat of activation is going to be worth a lot for this fellow. Not his actual activation. We have Civil Servant at 2-mana. Green-white, 2/3. Wow. Green-white 2/3 with abilities. What's up with that? Whenever it attacks, you may tap another untapped citizen you control. If you do, Civil Servant gets +1/0 and lifelink. What? That seems pretty good. Lifelinkers are always really powerful, and this is like an overstatted fellow at 2-mana. Typically, the 2-mana lifelinkers are 2/2s. This one's a 2/3, although it's not actually like always life. Like it doesn't work in defense, and having to tap an untapped citizen is kind of skeptical. I don't know how many times you're gonna have extra citizens lying around being idle, but no, you can't. If you have like 3 citizens, you can't do it. You can't tap all 3 of them to give a +3 on lifelink. This guy looks pretty good. Although it looks like the art depicts a female cat, so this fellow looks pretty good. This gal looks pretty good. Glamorous Outlaw, 3 blue, black, red. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to each opponent, and you scry 2. 6-mana, 4/5, enters the battlefield. Okay. Weird direct damage, but sure. And then you can pay 2 mana and exile Glamorous Outlaw from your hand. Target land gains tapped, add blue, black, or red until you cast this card from exile. And you may cast this for exile. Okay, that's really weird. So it looks like this is a cycle in this set. This is the mana fixing. Your common mana fixing for your 3-color pools. Okay. So it looks like maybe they want you to spend turn 2 fixing your mana? Okay. Yeah, and I don't know if you would play these cards if you were like a blue, black, white deck. Would you play Glamorous Outlaw? Probably not. Because it fixes for itself. You can make your land tap for red mana and then cast this, but also you can also make it, turn your planes into like a quasi-utopia if you do that. So it looks like this is a cycle of cards. All the 3-color commons do this. It does not help you find a 3rd land, which has been my benchmark for good sealed formats. is that you need to incentivize people to play more lands, and people don't want to play more lands, but they don't want to top deck a land when they're flooded, right? So people don't play lands, and so you need cards that make your opponent or make the player play more lands even though they don't want to. This doesn't do that. Because it doesn't actually like create a land that so it's not like you're drawing a card when you do this. You're mana silexing, and mana silex is not great. I don't know if you know what mana silex is. I'll bring it up for you. This is the old school mana silex. This is the definition of a horrible card is mana silex, right? Because you could just play a land instead of mana silex. But mana silex doesn't actually produce any mana on its own. This is the classic noob trap, and it was an uncommon back in the day. So it was just like such a massive trap to new players thinking that you should be playing mana silex in your decks. But yeah, I mean, these cards are probably cards you're gonna play. I don't think you should probably splash for these. I guess I don't know what the late game is gonna look like yet, because I haven't seen uncommons and rares. I suspect you don't splash for these in your blue, black, white decks or your black, red, green decks, but I might be wrong. Jet Nurse Fixture, red, green, 2/2. Gets ++1 to turn. If mana from a treasure ability was activate this ability, put a ++ counter on. Okay, so this is a 2/2 that turns into a 3/3 by attacking. So as I was talking earlier with Celestial Regulator, it's like looking like the 2-drops. Like this 2-drop has 3 power. This 2-drop has 3 power. This 2-drop has 3 power, right? So it looks like having a 3-drop with 3 defense is perhaps not where you want to be. That being said, this card is whatever. It's a whatever card. Fire Breathers, I mean, I guess it's like a shade. It's a red-green shade, which is weird. This ability is generally a black ability. Although they just like tacked on the treasure thing to make it red-green, I suppose. I don't know how prevalent treasures are. Seems medium. It looks like if mana from a treasure was spent to activate this ability, you don't have to spend 2 treasures to get 1 counter. I mean, you can, but if you have 2 treasures and 2 lands, you should get 2 different counters, as long as you do it properly. Yeah, mana sinks are kind of overrated, because the thing is with Jet Nurse Fixer, here's how reality is gonna play out. You're gonna have 2 swamps, 3 mountains, and a forest in play. So it's not really a mana sink. If you get what I'm saying, you're not gonna be able to activate this more than once. 6 mana, 5/5 Vigilance Menace. Yeah, you gotta be aware of the auto tapper for sure on TG Arena when you play this. This is just, it's kind of just a whatever card. There's not much to say about it. If the mana fixing is probably a big reason to want to play this card. And enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. 5 mana, 5/3. They've done these types of cards in the past, and this is a pretty good one. 2 bodies over for 5 mana, and mana fixing if you wanted it earlier. Could be good. This better be a giant flyer. 7 mana, 4/4 flying, enters the battlefield, gain 3 life. I guess it's a common. For a common, this is fine. It's an angel rogue if you were looking for party. It's just apparently this angel steals things, still angelic, no big deal. Snooping Newsy. 2 mana, 2/2, enters the battlefield, mill 2 cards. As long as there are 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard, it has +1/+1 and lifelink. This card seems really good. Another lifelinking common. So we have a green-white lifelink common at 2, and a blue-black lifelinking common at 2. So this looks like maybe this is the mechanic for blue and black. It's having 5 or more. It's like a different type of threshold, basically. Where if as long as you have 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard, and a land counts as 0. So if you have a land and a 1, 2, 4, and 5 drop, right? That's 5 different mana values. +1 and has a lifelink. Yeah, so it looks. This one actually looks quite good. It also is an enabler because it mills 2, right? So not only does it enable the threshold, but it also benefits from the threshold. This card seems quite good. This is better than all the other 2-drops, I think. Yeah, but I was commenting on Celestial Regulator that I was like, yeah, how good this card is depends on how many 2-drops have 3 power, and it turns out all of them do. So, maybe the Regulator isn't as good of a blocker as you would like. Oh, and so the Adjudicators have brought back Detain? Detain? Target creature an opponent controls can't attack or block until your next turn. Alright. I guess. This is a mechanic that green, white, and blue have had in the past. Well, it's white and blue had in the past. This one seems kind of medium. I don't know. This one seems worse than the others. You had to tame a green, so it's worse. I'm not wowed by any of these commons other than the Newsy. I'll put the Newsy as a 7. I think the Newsy is probably great. I don't like a big part of this card I don't particularly like is that it's an onboard trick, which they seem to put a lot of complexity or common if they're making onboard tricks like this. So this is like technically an onboard trick, right? Because if you have, say you have 3 or 4 different mana values in your graveyard, you can cast an instant to get another card in your graveyard, or goodness forbid, an instant with casualty. And then you'll get more cards in your graveyard, and this will, pop up to be a 3/3, right? And that's a lot of complexity to have. If your opponent has, for instance, a 2-mana 2/3, it's very, very stressful to be facing down a snooping Newsy, and if your opponent attacks you, like, do you block it with your 2/3? That's a very stressful decision, and I'm not a huge fan of that kind of decision being made so early in the game and at common, but we'll see. Let's move over to uncommons, and there are a ton of them. Brazen Upstart, one of each, so red, green, white. 3 mana, Vigilance 4/2. That's a weird stat line for Vigilance 4/2. Okay. When it dies, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So we can do some quick math here. Let's say your typical seal deck is going to have like 12 creatures, probably. You can't count this, so let's do 39, 11, 5, 1. 80% of the time. It's a good round number for this one. Yeah, I mean, black, red, green, or not black, red, green, it's red, green, white. This looks like a black, red, green card. That's why I said black, red, green. I'm surprised that it's red, green, white. But yeah, it's red, green, white. Dies, it draws a card 80% of the time. I wouldn't be surprised if this card's not actually very good. You're going to remember every single time that this does not hit a creature. Yeah, and a 4/2 when it dies, draw a card is sometimes not even a card, because it has to be a creature card. I'm not. It's also really hard to cast. I don't know if this is really hard to cast. I mean, if you have one of those commons on turn 2, that's gonna be pretty easy to cast, I would suspect. But we'll definitely see. But this looks like a common to me. To be honest, this looks like a common. This does not look that great to me. I wouldn't be surprised if you just don't even play this. Like, I think if you have like fewer than 11 creatures in your deck, you just don't even bother with this, because it just trades down. Target creature you control. Oh, this is a green, white, blue Broker's Charm. Target creature you control gets +1/0 until the turn. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker and opponent controls. So it punches something. Destroy a target enchantment or draw 2 cards. Okay. Seems like a reasonable card. You had me a draw 2 cards. I also like having just like backdoor enchantment removal. A lot of really good rares are typically enchantments. This card seems pretty good. The punch part, I think, is probably the weakest aspect of the card. It's 3 mana instant conditional kill your opponent's creature as long as your opponent doesn't have an instant of their own. Like, Decisive Denial was not very good. So. Cabaret Charm, red, green, white. The red, green, white always has the worst charms. Deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker, not players. Creature you control get +1/+1 and chain trample on a turn. Create 2/1/1s. This card is horrible. This card is horrible. I'm not even sure you want to play this. Naya Charms are always garbage, but goodness gracious, this card is awful. Ceremonial Groundbreaker, 3 mana. Creature gets +1/+2, 2/+1, and trample. Equip a citizen for 1 mana, or equip anybody for 3. This seems terrible. This is an uncommon. This seems terrible to me. Yeah, it's like it's Loxodon like shovel, but it doesn't like give lifelink. Like I thought it just gave lifelink. It doesn't even give lifelink. It just gives trample. What is this? This looks terrible to me. Unless citizens are like everywhere. This looks terrible. I'm gonna guess that this is terrible. Those are not stats you want for 6 mana. 4 or 6 mana, to be honest. You don't want it for either. Yeah, it's a harder to cast. Ancestral Katana, to give you an example of what I'm talking about. Ancestral Katana, this was in the last set. And it was like the worst card in the set. And I think Ancestral Katana is probably better than Ceremonial Groundbreaker. Alright. 4 mana, 2/4 haste. 1 mana, tap, add 3 mana. What? What? Whenever it dies, return to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So, this is one thing you may not realize. You would think that like, oh, I block, I add mana, it dies, I get back an instant, I can cast the instant with the mana. That doesn't work in combat, but it does work if your opponent just like throws a removal spell at it, like terminates it, right? You can use this to cast the instant or sorcery if it's done during your main phase, or if it's on your opponent's turn, you can use an instant. So I really don't like... Yeah, and I really don't like how it works with that. It does not work with Casualty. Yeah, Adventure. I was about to say that Adventure. It does not work with Casualty. Like you can't. If I have a Casualty spell, it's as an additional cost. You sacrifice the creature. It is still on the stack. It hasn't hit your graveyard yet, so you can't actually return the Casualty card with this trigger. Yeah, this is puzzling. This card is very puzzling. It has lots of traps built into it. It doesn't work the way you think it does. That being said, I'm surprised they printed it this way. It's still a good card. Despite all the dissonance. I don't say disenergy anymore, or anti-synergy. We call it dissonance. Despite all the dissonance present with this card and all of its myriad abilities, it is still a good card. And I'll be happy to play it. Yeah, we've learned from the previous set that when a creature can return instants and sorceries, we have a Splinter Twin situation. We have a 1+1 = 3 situation where you can just keep on looping things. So... Corpse Appraiser. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target creature card from a graveyard. If a card is put into exile this way, look at the top 3 cards of your library and then put one of those cards into your hand and the rest into your... Boy, this has a lot of text. Okay. Let's try to break this down. This is a really good card. What is the card? It casts Strategic Planning, but what is the black version of Strategic Planning called? No, it's strategic planning. But there's like it's like the loot the lab or something, right? It's like a fake card. It wasn't in a real set. Ransack the lab. No, it was called Ransack the lab. It's yeah, not a real card. But what this does is it enters the battlefield and you exile a creature from either graveyard, yours or your opponent's. If that happens, and that's a big if that happens, you cast you don't cast it, but you're doing the effect of Ransack the lab. Interesting to note that if that creature were to leave the graveyard before the ability resolves, you don't get to use you don't get the rest of it has to actually go to the exile zone with this ability. This card's really good. Because you have to remember that the mechanic for blue-black was revealed here, which is 5 more mana values among cards in your graveyard. So an effect like Ransack the Lab is exactly what you're looking for. Exactly. This card is way better than Brazen Upstart, and it's not even close. Like, they're in completely different universes. So this card looks really good. Yeah, and it also messes with your opponents. Yeah, I didn't mention that, but you're right. I'm going to call it Threshold, but they didn't put an ability ward on it, and I feel like they should have. Wait, you want to just call it Threshold? Whenever I say Threshold, I'm referring to the Threshold in this set. I don't know what their internal naming of it was. They should have named it. It's like CMC Lyrium, but it's called Mana Value now, right? MV Lyrium? I don't know. We'll call it Threshold. Crew Captain, black, red, green, haste 4/2. Has indestructible as long as it entered the battlefield this turn. This is a cool card. If there's some way to, like, blink it, you know, flicker it type deal. Like, if you, like, Restoration Angel this, it would have indestructible on your opponent's turn when you block with it. I don't know if there's any effects like that in the set, and it's a black, red, green card. So there probably aren't cards like that in this set. But this is a cool card. I like it. I anticipate losing to this. You have to be interested in this type of effect. You'd be interested in attacking to win, which not all decks in Sealed are interested in attacking to win. The best Sealed decks I've ever had no business attacking to win. My opponent, I just win with exhaustion. My opponent just conceding. Darling of the Masses. 4 mana 2/4. Other citizens you control get +1/+0. Whenever Darling of the Masses attacks, create a 1/1 green and white token. This card seems really good. It's got like quasi haste because it enters the battlefield and makes your other citizens have +1/0. Itself is a citizen, and it seems like even the cards that trigger off having citizens are also citizens. Alright? So it looks like it works well in like all those regards. This card seems really good. The token is not attacking. It's an untapped 2/1. That's really strong. An untapped 2/1 to block your opponent's Brazen Upstart. What is up with this card? It's a shaman. It's not even a citizen. What is up with this card? I feel like I'm missing something with it. Disciplined Duelist. Human Citizen. Double strike. 3 mana. Enters the battlefield with a shield counter on it. And there's a lot of synergy with double strike and having, or first strike and having shield, because your shield counter doesn't get removed unless you take damage. So your opponent can't just like chump with a 1/1 in order to remove the damage. And the cool part about this, one of the ways to kill double strikers is to double block them with like a pair of 2/2s. And you can't do that with this, right? You can't double block this with 2/2s and kill it because you'll just remove a shield counter. Even if you block with a 2/3 and a 2/2, you won't kill it because I can first strike down the 2/2, and then the 2/3 will deal 2 damage, but it just gets removed the shield counter. This is a solid little fellow. I'm generally not interested in these types of cards. It's a solid card though. I wouldn't be surprised if I ended up don't playing this. It's like you don't just play random like low power toughness double strikers and like in your decks sometimes. It is a citizen, so it has citizen buffs. Maybe it's a 6, but it's a citizen. If it wasn't a citizen, though, maybe it wouldn't be that good. Oh, that's something I didn't comment on, Jingo Joe, when I was going over the shields. You're saying that even if you block with 100 creatures, it only removes 1 shield counter. This is dealt in a single batch. I didn't talk about that when I probably should have. That's a good point. It'll always live through 1 combat? Okay. No, you have a good point. I didn't bring that. I should have probably said that. Alright, exotic pets. Instant, 3 mana, create 2/1/1 blue fish creature tokens with this creature cannot be blocked. Okay, whatever. Then for each kind of counter among creatures you control, put a counter on that count on either one of those tokens. You better hope that you don't have a -1/-1 counter on one of your creatures, because then the exotic pets will be very sad. I'm gonna guess they don't have -1/-1 counters in this set, but if they did, boy, would exotic pets be sad. So this is gonna be like a 3 mana 2/2 and a 1/1 with a shield counter on one of them. This doesn't seem very good to me. I know but you're still gonna be sad. You wanted your pets were family, and you separated them with a -1/-1 counter. This card looks really bad. Like 3 mana pair of 1/1s is not a card I'm interested in. 3 mana a pair of 1s that cannot be blocked. I don't think I'm interested in that either. If you're not getting a +1/+1 counter on this, I don't want anything to do with this. Like if it was 3 mana flash, 2/2 unblockable, would that card be playable? Like no, obviously not. So I feel like this card is worse than that. This card seems pretty bad. Oh, it triggers Alliance twice. That's the joke. Isn't Alliance not blue? Isn't Alliance red? Isn't it red, green, white? It's not Alliance colors. Yeah. It's not even Alliance colors. I don't think I want anything to do with this. Fatal Grudge. As an additional cost, sacrifice an online permanent. Each opponent chooses a permanent they control that shares a type and sacrifices it. Draw a card. This card seems pretty good. Enchantment removal in black-red. And draw a card. Like, this reminds me of, this was actually a black-green card, right? Yeah, it was. It's basically Deadly Brew. Yeah, it's basically Deadly Brew. And I liked Deadly Brew. Well, one thing this does is it puts 2 different mana value of cards into your graveyard for, you know, the threshold that blue-black has, right? So the Maestros, the blue-black-red one, seems like they might be interested in this. Just getting 2 different mana values there. Anything, like, a sorcery that just draws a card seems like something you might be interested in. I like it. I'm probably going to play it. I loved Deadly Brew. I just love this type of effects. So, you need an enchantment to kill an enchantment? Yeah, but, you know, why can't you have an enchantment? I like these types of effects. I think you're going to play it more often than not. I like that it's a bomb killer. You know, there's a bomb artifact or bomb instant or not bomb instant, but bomb enchantment. This has a good chance of killing it. Forge Boss. 4 mana 3/4. Whenever you sacrifice one or more other creatures, deals 2 damage to each opponent once per turn. This card seems pretty bad. Like if it was just a 4 mana 5/4, it would just be, you know, not a good card. It just seems worse than a 4 mana 5/4. This seems pretty bad. Mana leaves your mana. To answer your question earlier on the dissonance with this card. So mana clears in each step. So there's like, in the combat step, there's lots of other things going on. There's beginning of combat, declare attackers, declare blockers. First strike damage step, which doesn't actually happen unless there's a first striker in play. Normal damage step. There's kind of sort of the same step. I'm actually not sure if mana floats in between First Strike and normal. I don't think it does. And then there's end of combat cleanup, and that's where creatures die. They die as state-based effects, state-based abilities. I don't know what they call them nowadays. So if you block with it and you floated mana, you would the steps. There's already been some steps in between where you floated mana and where it actually dies, so you wouldn't have mana in your mana pool. State-based actions are what they called now. Okay, yeah. This card seems quite bad. It does trigger off of the black, red, green mechanic, but I'm not interested. There's so many. We've already seen multiple lifelinkers. Like direct damage is good in formats where there aren't 2 mana 3 power lifelinkers. This card seems horrible. This is not the 3/4 landfall. The landfall fellow will trigger every for at least 3 damage. I don't want anything to do with that. This fellow. Ugh. When enters the battlefield, exile any number of other target creatures controlled by different players until it leaves the battlefield. Okay. When it enters the battlefield under your control, put 2 counters. Okay. Okay. This looks really complicated. This looks really complicated. This is what it is. Okay, this is what it is. In addition to being a 2/3 Banisher Priest, you can also exile one of your creatures, and when it comes back, it gets 2 counters on it. I know this has a lot of text, and it's worded very, very, very weirdly. This is what it is. Banisher Priest is easy to understand. It's easy to understand. That being said, unless you're interested in exiling your own creatures, this card is bad. Because Banisher Priest effects are always bad. They've always been bad. And they always will be bad. So, unless you're exiling your own creature, don't bother. I would not even look at this card. The reason for that, to get into some explanations in Sealed, is that removal spells are everywhere in Limited. In Sealed especially, because you're playing your 23 best cards a lot of the time, or 22 best cards. You're going to have between 4 and 6 Terminates in your deck, destroy target creatures type deals, and you're setting yourself up for failure. You're going to play this card, remove your opponent's giant creature, you're going to attack, they're going to kill this magpie. Their creature is going to enter the battlefield and block your creature and kill it. So you're setting yourself up for a 1-for-2. You're setting yourself up for losing. I've talked about over and over what they would need to do to make these types of effects good. They would need to make the thing come into play tapped. This does just murder tokens. You're right. It does just exile tokens if that's a thing that you want to do. I'm more interested in exiling your own creatures and having it coming back as +2/+1 counters. That interests me. And maybe if there's a way to take advantage of that, you should go look into this. A 2/3 that enters the battlefield and kills a 1/1 token your opponent controls is a pretty awful card. I'm not a fan of these types of effects. I never will be. You'll probably play it, and you'll probably be very unhappy playing it. And you're going to lose a lot of games because of this card. Alright, look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put one of those cards into your hand. Oh, I hate it. Oh, I hate that this card exists. This is so stressful. This is so stressful. And you know why? Because this will just ruin people's lives. Because what's going to happen is there's a non-zero chance you cast this card and you get Threshold. That's so stressful. Like, my opponent plays Snooping Noobsy turn 2, and I play Civil Servant. They have blue, black, red on turn 3 and attack me. Do I block? Right? Like, And what's going to happen is people are just going to block with their 2/3 on your 2/2. You're going to cast Maestro's Charm. You're going to get Threshold. You're going to eat their creature. You're going to gain a bunch of life. It's going to be so tilting every single time it happens. I hate it. I just have to assume that all my opponents have this card. The mere threat of having a Maestro's Charm makes all these cards completely so much better. The fact that it exists in the format. I hate it. I hate that it exists. Each opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. Whew. Deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Yeah, this card's amazing, right? It's just get Threshold or terminate. Or buy out, gain 3 life if you need it. This card's obviously amazing. At the end of the day, though, it is a 1-for-1. At the end of the day. This is probably an 8. It's just baseline terminate, I think. Well, Grixis Charms in the past have all been terrible. Do I need to remind you of what the other ones did? I'm not going to, but... The old ones used to do, like, deal -4/-4. And... Oh, did I miss... No, I didn't mistype. Oh, yeah, you're right, I did mistype. You're right, this is a 5. This is an 8. Yeah, Morella the Magpie is awful. Don't be conned. Also, why is the Magpie a soldier or not a rogue? What's up with that? Don't magpies steal things? Isn't the most famous magpie in the game? It steals things, right? The artwork is just stealing things. Alright. So, soldier that steals things. Anyways. Metropolis Angel. 4 mana, 3/1 flyer. Bleh. Whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures with counters on them, draw a card. I'm going to lose this so much. I'm going to hate every second of it. This seems like... I mean, the baseline is probably you play... The ideal scenario is you play this and you attack with a creature with a counter, you draw a card immediately, right? But it does not have a counter. It doesn't, like, feed itself. And the body is horrible. So, I don't know what's up with this one. In fact, have we even seen a card this even works with yet? Like, not even joking. Like, this doesn't really... The 2+1/+1 counter doesn't actually work with it. Have we actually seen a card this works with yet? Same thing with this. We haven't even seen a card that works with these things. They're just this? What? None of these... Well, we haven't even seen a card that works with any of this. So I'm actually going to assume that maybe this is, like, maybe not very good. This Metropolis Angel. I'm going to reserve judgment. Oh, connive is a thing that's, like, at common in white and blue? Okay. Alright. Maybe when we get to the monocolor... Maybe this is a monocolored mechanic. There's, like, a 2 mana 2/1 with connive, or like a 3 mana 3/3 with connive, or 3/2 with connive, or whatever. Then I can see this being really good. If you've got, like, 7 enablers in your deck. Mr. Orfeo the Boulder. Whenever you attack, double target creature's power until the turn. Interestingly enough, this has, like, haste. This is really weirdly worded. In my mind. Because I think you actually need to attack with a creature, not go to the attack step. Like, my mind initially thought that you just go to the attack step and it doubles. And it's not target creature you control either. You can double your opponents if you want. This card seems pretty good. It has, like, you know what it reminds me of? It's the goblin that does this. That's what this guy is. No, Battle Rattle. Yeah, Battle Rattle. Battle Rattle was always good. This guy seems really good. I like it a lot. This type of effect is really strong. Yeah, I don't know why this is not a beginning of combat trigger instead of it. Like, I guess they want you to have to attack for, like, fling effects or something. I don't know. It's I don't know why it's not like worded like Battle Shaman, right? Weird. This card seems good though. Nimble Larcenist. Oh, casualty, you think? So you can't just get like free casualty by just chilling in the back row and not attacking? Okay. Nimble Larcenist, 3 mana, 2/1 flyer. Bird Rogue, as you steal things. Enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. Choose an artifact, instant, or sorcery card from it and exile that card. No, this card's really good. They don't even get it back. It's not like a Banisher Priest. They actually just... Yeah, it's gone for good. This card seems really good. Yeah, it's just Sin Collector, but Sin Collector that also hits artifacts. I imagine myself getting annihilated by this fellow. We found we found a target for the Magpie. Magpie, that guy. Obscura Charm, white, blue, black. Return target multicolored permanent with your mana value 3 or less from your graveyard. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? To the battlefield, tapped. That's the line of text you need to add to all these types of things to make them good. Well, not good. Obviously, it makes them worse. But to make them less stressful as a player. Like, my opponent has 3 mana open. I don't have a card set in front of me. I don't even know what flash blockers exist in the format. I just have to hope that I can attack with my 2/1, right? And that my opponent can't just kill it for value. And the biggest offender for this was the biggest offender. A little bit of a tangent. Plumeveil. So this was a flash defending flying 4/4. So now if your opponent has 3 mana open at any point in any game, you have to think, oh, well, if they have Plumeveil, I'll just lose. I'm just going to hope they don't have Plumeveil. Right? Yeah, and Plumeveil is so rage-inducing. It makes you just want to quit playing, right, when you get Plumeveiled. And I'm happy that Obscura Charm does not have the Plumeveil issue. Because it enters the battlefield tapped. Yeah, I was scarred for life off Plumeveil. Oh, counter target instant or sorcery, whatever. Destroy target creature or Planeswalker mana value. That's actually typically not a great effect to have. This charm is medium. I am not impressed. I mean, you play it because the destroy target creature or Planeswalker mana value 3 less, but there aren't Planeswalkers mana value 3 or less, right? At least not in sealed. Maybe in this set. It's like a really bad Terminate. I guess you play it. It's a Terminate that can also has a bio as instant or sorcery. Yeah, I mean, I guess it basically is going to 1-for-1 your opponent at every point. But like counterspells are less effective because of casualty, right? Although I say that, but most of the casualty spells, if you counter one, you're going to maybe counter both. Because, for instance, if there's a casualty card that's deal 2 damage for 2 mana, and it's a casualty 2, if they sack a 2-drop and they want to kill your 4/4, well, they target your 4/4 with 2 damage twice. If you counter one of them, your 4/4 now has 2 damage on it, lives, right? So, you know, counter spells, they sound like they're going to be bad against casualty, but I think they actually might just be good against casualty anyways. Because your opponent, you know, had to sack a creature for the effect, so they set themselves up for 1-for-2ing themselves. Yeah, but the problem with this charm is that you're often going to kill something that has mana value 3. So you're not like... Your removal spells need to cost less than what you're killing. And this doesn't, like, can't kill a 6-drop unless that 6-drop is a bunch of tokens, right? So that's instant or sorcery. I'm not impressed by this card. That being said, you probably still play over how versatile it is. It's basically almost never dead. Queza, Augur of Agnes. Whenever you draw a card, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. This card seems really good. Yeah, my baseline for Terminates is an 8 Stork. And this is like slightly worse than a Terminate. so probably always going to play it still. Yeah, this card is really good. It's also a cephalid. He has fantastic hair. Yeah, you don't have to attack to win. This is like a really good sealed card because you don't have to attack to win. It has great stat line. Yeah, you don't have to attack to gain life. This card seems really good. It's also an uncommon legend. Cephalid? Well, if you're not familiar with cephalids, one of my favorite... it's on a lot of things that I've branded myself as, but I don't know if you remember Abashan. This is what the OGs look like, the OG cephalids. You can't see them. But the OGs... By the way, Abashan was completely insane, the 10 out of 10 card in this set. And his flavor text is, no one can fight the tide forever. And by the way, his type line, you can't see it because I'm in the way. It says Cephalid Noble. But yeah, this card is obviously terrifying. And his quote is amazing. Because obviously he's a cephalid, right? He's a cephalid, and he's talking in water terms, but you can for the plot reasons, he's also like, the tide of change. No one can fight the tide of, change forever, or tide, whatever. You can say tide and replace it with lots of different things, but it's a great quote and an amazing 10 out of 10 card. And like, yeah. Anyways, this is not that, but it is still good. I love this card. Riveteers Charm. Target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker they control with the highest mana value among creatures. Wait. Wait. Wait a minute. Wait, this was a rare, wasn't it? This was a rare. Wait a minute. This was a rare. Well, now we're uncommon. Alright, fine. Exile the top 3 cards of your library until your next end step. You may play those cards. Exile target player's graveyard. That's actually really good in this format, right? Because you take away your opponent's threshold at instant speed. I can see yourself actually doing that ability more often than 0. And exile the top 3 cards of your library until your next end step. So it's worded weirdly. But it's your next end step. So if I have 5 mana and I play Riveteers Charm and I pay 3 mana for Riveteers Charm and I reveal 2 lands and like a 6-drop, I can play a land, and then next turn I can play a land that I removed from this and then play the 6-drop. Right? It's your next end step, not your upcoming end step, your next end step. Is my understanding on this. Or is that not how it works? It's the same as Reckless Impulse, right? Why is Light Up the Stage different? Oh, this says until the end of your next turn. What does Light Up the Stage say? Until the end of your next turn. Okay, so if it says until the end of your next turn, it's what I was talking about. That's not what this card is. Okay, this card is way worse than I thought. You have to play them this turn. Well, not this turn, because if you played on your opponent's end step, basically, if you exile 2 lands with this, you can't play both lands. This card is way worse than I thought. Way worse. I mean, ideally, you hit 2 spells on a land and you play them both, right? I thought it was the end of your next end step. That is... Well, it technically does that, but I thought it was until the end of your next turn, which is not what this is. Okay. Easy mistake to make. Because they're not, as you can tell, they're inconsistent in their wording for these cards. Yeah, you can do it on your opponent's end step, but if you hit 2 lands, you still can't play them both. That being said, it's really good. Wait a second. You may play those cards. It doesn't work. It doesn't work with these either, right? Oh, because it says exile Spara's adjudicators from your hand. It doesn't work with that either. This card is way worse than I thought. This card's not that great. That being said, it's still a fun card. Rocco, Cabaretti Caterer. Red, green, white, 3/1. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, okay, you may search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So if you pay 3 mana, you get a 0-drop, which you probably aren't going to have an Ornithopter or something in the format. No Dryad Arbors. You pay 4 mana, it's a 3/1 and a 1/1. Or whatever you search for, it's a 1-cost creature from your deck. You pay 5 mana, it's a 3/1 and a mana value 2 or less. Although I don't know why you want to get a 1-drop, or you pay one fewer, I don't know. But yeah, at 6 mana, it's a pair of 3/3s, right? It's like a 3/1 and a 3/3 is what this is going to be. At 6 mana, this is actually like pretty good. At 4 mana, if there's like a rare 1-drop, the thing that's really good about this card is the direct tutoring for it. So if you have a rare creature that costs 1, 2, or 3 mana, this card becomes really amazing, right? So it does, yeah. Yeah, tutor up your 3/3 lifelink. Which 3/3 lifelink are you for 2 mana are you referring to? Are you referring to this one? Or are you referring to this one? It's tough to tell. There's a lot of them in the set. How can you be a caterer and not be a citizen? I guess you don't live where you work? Anyways. This card seems pretty good. But it is going to be dependent on if you have like a rare 1, 2, or 3. Wait, why is this fellow a druid? I don't know. The creature cut types are all over the place. I just like throw a dart at a wall. I think if you don't have a good 1, 2, or 3 drop to get with this, I would not even bother. Security Rocks. 4 mana, 5/4. You can pay a red green rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Spend all these mana produced by treasures to cast this card. This card seems terrible. What am I missing? Just this is a 4 mana 5/4, no text. Okay. I'm not sacking 2 treasures to cast this. It's not happening. Oh wait, the joke is with the reprint, right? There's a reprint of a 4 mana card that makes 2 treasures, right? I think there is. Still, why don't you just spend 4 mana on this and spend 4 mana on the other card and just keep 2 treasures? I feel like you're gonna cast this for treasures maybe 1% of the time. And this is not happening. I wish yours was a 4/5 instead of a 5/4, and it's weird that it's a Rhino that has more power than health. That's weird to me. That being said, it does have a lot of stats. I'm still not impressed. Most 4-drops have 4 power, so this trades with every 4-drop. So I don't. 5 toughness is where you want to be. This card does not seem very good to me. You don't use treasures to cast like on color 5/4s. When there's a battlefield, create 2 treasure tokens. Sacrifice a treasure, create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. See, this is kind of what I'm talking about. When I have treasures, I've got other things to do with treasures other than cast a card I could just cast anyways. I can just pay normal mana for this guy. That being said, this card looks terrible. This is the worst card we've seen so far. But it doesn't say whenever you sacrifice your treasure and make a 1/1 green and white citizen, you have to sack a treasure, which means you don't get mana from it. No. This looks like the worst card we've seen this set so far. Syndicate Infiltrator. Yeah, 4 mana 5/5 flyer and uncommon, no big deal. Phantom Monster on the front end, like 5/5 on the back end. I anticipate this is actually secretly a 6-drop that costs 4 mana. Right? It's a 6 mana 5/5 flyer that costs 4 mana. On turn 6, rather. This card seems quite good. Fast forward sound. The Skyswinger Koi, it was pretty good. I liked it. I liked it a lot in sealed. Like, I don't know if I've actually ever won a game where my opponent had Skyswinger Koi and untapped with it. So that was in the previous set. Tainted Indulgence. 2 mana, draw 2 cards, then discard a card unless there are. So this kind of goes. This is kind of weird, but it goes both. This not only is it a payoff. Not only is it a payoff for having Threshold, but it also enables Threshold for 2 mana, right? Because it puts a 2 mana card in the graveyard and whatever you discard. So it puts 2 different mana value of cards into your discard, and you're probably gonna discard a land to this. So you're gonna 0 and a 2. The Dimir seems insane, as it always does in every sealed event. This card seems great. Yeah, not a sorcery because who needs shields down? Like, they could have just made this a sorcery, right? But it's not. They wanted to make it constructed. They made it an instant, right? Yeah, blue-black is looking like the best so far. Blue-black-red, Maestros. The like, this newsy, the Corpse Appraiser. The Corpse Appraiser looks bananas to me. Because not only do you screw your opponent's like mana value in the graveyard, but you also get to just enable your own. It draws a card. It's super draw card. Holy moly. This card, Corpse Appraiser just seems bananas to me. Yeah, this can hit a land. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 3/3, it trades with everything that costs 2 or 3 mana. What I have noticed is that almost every 4-drop has 4 toughness, is what it looks like, right? Like 4 tough, even on like the creature that wants to die, it has 4 toughness. 4 toughness. 4 toughness. Everything has 4. So basically, the 3/3 can never trade up. Right? Yeah, 4 toughness. So it looks like that's what they did. When they went through this set, they made sure that all the 4-drops had 4 toughness. So like that's kind of the baseline. Let's move on to the rares. Well, we're going to start with multicolored rares, and there's a ton of them. It's a multicolored set, and we come off with an awesome card at the start. Flying, 2 mana, 1/1 flyer. As long as there are 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard, it gets +2/+2 in Death Touch. So it's a 3/3 flyer with Death Touch, if you have Threshold. And then when Aven Heartstabber dies, mill 2 cards and draw a card. Wow. This card seems amazing. Yeah. This is a fellow that you actually want to actively casualty, right? It's a great Maestros card. It's a card that's just, it pays you off so much just to sacrifice it to casualty. Although its power is only 1 unless you've got Threshold, right? So that being said, I think this card's great. Fortunately, it's a card that doesn't kill you very fast. It is a 2 mana 1/1 flyer. So this is much better as like on a turn 6. I think turn 6 is where you're looking to almost always have Threshold enabled if you're playing Maestros or blue-black. So on turn 6, it's a 3/3 flying Death Touch. And when it dies, you draw 2 and no, you draw 1 and mill 2. Like you mill 2 first and then you draw a card. So if you have 2 cards in your deck, you do die. But hopefully deck damage is not a big problem for blue-black in this set. Black Market Tycoon. Red-green 2/2. Rare. At the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 2 damage to you for each treasure you control. You'd have to look at the... You'd have to look at... I'm pretty confident in this. So, you end a turn, make a treasure. You untap, you upkeep, you make a treasure, and in responsibility, you like sack all your treasures to like cast a big card. On your upkeep, you cast a big card and you take 0 damage, right? That's what I assume is how this is worded, because it doesn't check how many treasures you have until it resolves. That being said, this card seems pretty mopey. Because this card actually existed in the past and it was awful. In fact, I think it was your opponent takes 1 and it was awful, right? I think, right? I think there was a red-green 2/2 that tapped to make a mana and your opponent took 1 and it was awful. Maybe it was a 3 mana 2/2, but I thought it was a 2 mana 2/2. Was this Zerta Druid? Zerta Shaman? I'm not saying it. Oh, it's ZHUR is what it was. ZHUR? Yeah, it was Zerta Druid. This card was terrible. It was a common and it was terrible. Now, clearly, Treasure is different because this can let you play a 4-drop when you only got, like, this and 2 lands will cast a 4-drop. You just have to take 2 to do it, right? So, you know, it is worth its rare damage, but it's not just 2 damage if you have any treasure. It's 2 damage per treasure. That is so expensive. That being said, it is a red-green 2/2 that taps for a mana of any color and has an artifact sack trigger and enter the battlefield trigger. So that's got to be worth something. It being mana fixing has to help a little bit, right? Taps for a mana of any color has to mean something. This card looks really bad. At first glance, we haven't seen the commons of those treasure payoffs. And don't tell me that this fellow is a payoff. It's not. This not a payoff. All right, not what I'm looking for. And stimulus package, also not what I'm looking for. I'll reserve judgment on this. I'm gonna call it a 5. No, it's gotta be attached from enemy color. It has to be good enough. Those it has to be good enough. Just as a baseline as that. It doesn't look very good to me though. Broker's Ascendancy. At the beginning of your end step, put a counter on each creature you control. Okay. This was a busted 5-mana rare. This was a 3-white rare before, right? And now it's just like a. Okay. Did we come across the best card in the set? Okay. What? Do I have to meet some sort of condition? Was it called Citadel Siege? Yeah. Oh, this was a 4-mana rare. Oh, put 2 counters on 1 creature. This puts 1 counter on all of them. No, this was like Cathar's Crusade or something, right? Yeah, it's Cathar's. Oh, I was actually right. Oh, wait, no. It's even better than Cathar's Crusade. Alright. It has haste. It works on the turn you play it. All right. What was it? Abzan? No, Abzan Ascendancy. It had to deal with like tokens, right? No, it was an enter the battlefield, put a counter on each creature, but that was it. Abzan Ascendancy was terrible. All right. How is your opponent supposed to compete with this? Because your creatures are large the turn you play it. It'd be different if it was an upkeep trigger. The card would not be very good if it was an upkeep trigger. The fact that it works the turn you play it means that, like, you know, your opponent doesn't really have a window to attack you because you've got all these blockers that are bigger now. See, look, upkeep trigger. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature or planeswalker card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. If you don't, you may put it on the bottom. So it basically scries non-creatures or planeswalkers. Why does everything Naya always have to suck? That being said, this is still like Phyrexian Arena. You know, this is still most of an arena. Like, if there was just 3 mana on your upkeep, scry 1, that's a card that you've played in other formats. That's just cards that have been printed in the past that you've played. And it's gonna be a draw 1 like 40% of the time, probably less, way less than that. Probably 30% of the time is gonna draw a card. This is probably gonna draw like 2 cards over 5 turns, right? Yeah, I guess 40% of the time. But you could pump the brakes if you got too much. If you're drawing too many cards and there's too much deck damage, you can just pump the brakes. That being said, this card seems pretty mopey. Those bottoming cards counters draw? Not really. It's not deck healing. It's just neglecting to have deck damage. It's not exactly deck healing. That being said, if you play this on turn 3, it's probably fine. But this card seems like it's an ability that would be on a 2-mana card, and it's on a 3-mana card. It's not Broker's Ascendancy. Like, I think Cabriti Ascendancy is worse than just a 3-mana draw 2. I'm pretty confident in that. But there's room to be worse than a 3-mana draw 2 and still be playable. Which this may not be it. It's a terrible top deck too, because you have to wait a turn. I feel like they've actually printed this exact card before. Corpse Explosion deals damage equal to the exile card's power to each creature and each planeswalker. Okay. So it's a great Maestros card. I typically don't like playing Wraths, but you may have to like lose Threshold to cast this, which could be bad, and it deals with power. And the thing is, your like creatures have abilities that don't work in the graveyard. Like, you know, this is a 1/1 in the graveyard. This is a 2/2 in the graveyard. You know, this thing is a 3/3 in the graveyard, right? So something of note. So something to note. No, it's a card from your graveyard. Something to note is that if Corpse Explosion would give you Threshold, your creatures won't die. For instance, you have a Syndicate Infiltrator in play. You cast Corpse Explosion, exiling one of your creatures that has 3 power. You lose Threshold. When this resolves, if it gives you Threshold, your creature won't die. Right? So if you like exile a 3-mana creature that has 3 power, and this resolves and deals 3 damage to your creature, it's not going to kill this. Yeah, it's like casting Lightning Bolt on Tarmogoyf, right? That being said, your sweeper needs to deal at least 4. Because we saw earlier that almost every 4-drop had 4 health, right? But a lot of the 4-drops have 4 health and don't have 4 power, like this one. And this one. And this one. Right? I think this has to deal 4 damage to be remotely effective. You're probably not going to have more than 5 4-power creatures in your deck. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for this to work. I think screwing up your own Threshold may be, like, too much of a limiting factor. Because I think the card that you're removing is the one that's going to be, like, a unique mana value in your graveyard. I generally don't play sweepers in sealed. I think they're generally pretty bad. It's too easy to play around. There's a lot of counterspells just randomly in this format, right? It's too easy to play around. There's too many discard spells. Like, if you're trying to set things up and your opponent has, you know, the magpie, not the magpie. Well, they could have the magpie and they exile their own creature, but you know, they could have not this one, but the Nimble Larcenist. They can exile it, right? Or your opponent could like randomly use their blue, black, red Corpse Appraiser to exile a creature in your graveyard you wanted to exile for your corpse thing, right? I mean, there's so many ways your opponent interact with this card, and I feel like it's just not going to pay off very often. Looks like my thing froze. Okay. All right. Endless Detour. The owner of target spell, non-land permanent, or card in a graveyard puts it on the bottom of their library. Hey, thanks for the host, Strix Familiar. This is... I hate these types of effects. It's top or bottom. It's just like Aethergust, where you don't choose, they choose. If you choose your opponent, if your opponent chooses, they can choose to put it on top. So it's not real removal. It's top or bottom, my apologies. It's not real removal, because they can get rid of it or they can put it on top. If it doesn't like she'd like answer a problem, your opponent's still gonna have it. It's still a very stressful card, because it can also hit graveyards. And you can like instant speed remove your opponent's like threshold and maybe like blow out them in combat, right? I do like that you can do some deck healing with this. Thank you, chat, for reminding me of the deck healing applications. Yes, you can in fact put it on a card from your graveyard on top of your deck, right? You can do that for some much needed deck healing. And if you have 2 of these, you can have an endless detour around the city, keep on putting them on top of your deck seal and get decked. Yeah. I don't like this card, though. These types of effects always play out much worse than they actually seem. That being said, it is very flexible. I'm gonna put this as a 6 for now. I would suspect this card is gonna play out much worse than it looks like. It's when you're hitting things that have mana value 4 or more. When this is tempo positive, it's really strong. Like when you're winning and this is tempo positive, this is really strong. But you don't really want cards that are good when you're winning. And I think this is this is a type of effect that's really only good when you're winning. Because if a card is hurting you, it's not going anywhere. So, yeah. You play it, you're just not going to be happy about it. Evelyn the Covetous. Okay, so the mana value for this thing is 5. It's awarded, the mana value is, it's basically colorless, right? It's 2 and a black and like 2 colorless. It's like 4 colorless and a black to cast this. That's what it actually is. It's so weird, the mana value on these things, but it's a mono black card, right? You can play this for 2 black 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 or 2 black black red or 2 blue black red or whatever. It's basically colorless to play this. And I spoke about this earlier. It has flash. No. No. It's so stressful to have flash creatures in the format. Alright. When Evelyn the Covetous or another vampire enters the battlefield under your control, exile the top card of each player's library with the collection counter on it. Once each turn, you may play a card from exile with the collection counter on it if it was exiled by an ability you controlled. And you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it. So, 5 mana, 2/5 flash. Doesn't have flying, weirdly enough. 5 mana, 2/5. And it's a draw 2. It draws 1 from your opponent and 1 from yourself. But you can only play them once per turn, which is whatever. Cool. Evelyn, the cool thing about Evelyn is it also works with... Oh, it doesn't work with this. I thought it worked with Corpse Appraiser, but it does not. Because it doesn't put a collection counter on it. Okay. It has to have a collection counter. It does allow lands, but if you reveal like a land and a spell, you can't play them both in the same terms as once per turn. You can play a land on your turn and then on your opponent's turn play an instant or something. But yeah, I mean it works that Corpse Appraiser is a vampire, yes. But it doesn't work because it doesn't have a collection counter on it. Evelyn works with other Evelyns, basically. It's just like Karn, right? Is what it is. You know, the Karn that has silver counters, is that what it is? I don't remember what. Yeah, put a card you own with silver counter on it and exile from your hand. Yeah, okay. It's like Karn. Yeah, you can end step Evelyn, untap, and then cast the spells. Yeah, this card is completely bananas. And it's basically colorless to cast this. And it's at least a 9. I just imagine losing to this over and over No, it's not Grixis Didacta. It's Maestros, first of all. And second of all, it's a mono black card. So you're wrong on both counts. Yeah. It can be a blue-black card, a black-red card, as long as it's black. But it's a mono black card, basically, so. Trample, lifelink haste. 4 mana, 4/4. Wait. Oh, this was... Okay, no. This was a 4/3. Okay. Yeah, looks good. A lot of lifelink in the set. A lot of lifelink. To be clear, Evelyn crushes this guy. You can lifelink all you want. I'm gonna deck damage you and play all your cards. Hostile takeover. Up to one target creature has base power 1/1 until end of turn. Up to one other target creature has base power 4/4. Base power does 4/4 until end of turn. Then deals 3 damage to each creature. So if you chose a creature that had a -1/-1 counter on it, it would kill them both, right? Because it would be a 3/3 with 3 damage on it. This can't kill things with... Yeah, so basically how this becomes... This is mostly a 2-for-2, right? So what happens is, the theory is you attack with a 1/1, they block with their 10/10, right? You attack the 1/1, they block with a 10/10. Second main phase, you cast this. You make their 10/10 with 1 damage on it into a 1/1. Or you turn their 10/10 with 1 damage on it into a 4/4. And then you turn like their other 10/10 into a 1/1. And then you deal 3 to both. Right? So this is basically... Well, you could... Yeah, there's... And I say that because it could come up. And I say that it could totally come up because wouldn't you know that this imagine your opponent has a Desolation Twin and all you have is a 1/1 and a hostile takeover. All right. If you're fighting off Eldrazi, you can use hostile takeover to kill 2 of them in this very convoluted situation. But so this is a second main phase card. It's not an instant, it's a sorcery. See, you're basically going to cast this second main phase on a creature that already has damage and make the creature that has already had damage on it into a 4/4, which sounds weird. So this is 5 mana terminate, or if they block, 5 mana destroy 2 things. Destroy 2 creatures. Not what I expected from my 5 mana Grixis. 5 mana Maestro sorcery. Not what I expected. Wait a minute. Wait, this is a Wrath? Oh, wait. This is a Wrath. I thought it only dealt damage to the chosen creatures. Because why am I doing all this choosing? If I'm... Why isn't that just a separate line? Like, you're into one paragraph and we're talking about choosing one and choosing another, and I'm like, okay, yeah, deal 3 damage. Sounds good. Okay, I thought this was Dead Ringers. I thought this was Dead Ringers. Okay. I thought this was Dead Ringers. And it's not Dead Ringers. It's a sweeper. Okay. Now I understand things better. So, you have a 2/2, and your opponent has like 4 4/4s. That just doesn't work. Wait a minute. No, this card's still bad. Wait. No, this card's still bad. Because if your opponent has 2 4/4s, it doesn't kill them both. No. You remember how we just went over all these cards that have 4 toughness? We just talked about how the key flashpoint for this set is 4 toughness. Everything that's worth playing has 4 toughness. And then it's just like, yeah, deal 3 damage to each creature. 5 mana, what? Okay, this is probably going to be a 2-for-1. At the end of the day, you're probably going to play it. This is a sweeper we're going to play main deck. Here's the actual scenario. Your opponent has like a 2-2 and a 4-4, and you have a 3-3. You play this. You kill their 2-2 and their 4-4. You save your 3-3 by turning into a 4-4. Right? That's what happens. That is... We found the expected scenario for this card. We found it. Your opponent has like a 1-1, a 2-2, and a 4-4. You have a 3-3. You play this. Your opponent loses all their creatures. You get to save yours. That's what you use it for. Got it. We figured it out. All right. We took the scenic route. We took a detour, one might say, into Denringer's territory. But we found out where we're supposed to use it. Okay. Okay, now that I've said that, this card's way better than I thought. Because baseline, it's 5 mana terminate. Because it's up to 1. Like 5 mana, like baseline, it's terminate. If they don't have a shield counter, which let's hope they don't. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. If there are any effects... If there are any effects that give -1/-1 until end of turn, or have -1/-1 counters, this is going to work really weirdly with those. I expect those to not exist in this set, because it doesn't play well with shield. The shield doesn't stop any of that. Are there a couple of those? Are you kidding me? Alright. Moving on. Incandescent Aria. Just 3 damage to each non-token creature. This card seems awful, first of all. Sweepers, I need to kill tokens. You're not killing tokens, get out of here, right? I guess it works with my tokens? Against non-token non-believers? I'm off it. I'm off it. There are so many sweepers in this set, and they all do 3 damage. If you would create 1 or more tokens, you may instead create that many 2/2s with haste or 3/1 with vigilances. Okay. That's a cool card. 3 mana, 3/3, no text, but I don't know if there's any, like... I mean, I don't know where you're going to make tokens, but... And don't tell me... Don't you dare tell me stimulus package. Here's what you do. Here's what you do. You go turn 1, Black Market turn 2, Black Market Tycoon, turn 3, this thing, and you get to tap to make a 3/1. Bam! Rare into rare, and you extend the hand. You just do a little bit of that. Got him good. It seems like a common line of play. I see what you did there. Well said. I'm not so sure about this. This could be completely busted. There is that 4 mana card that makes 2 treasures, right? This could be completely busted or it could be completely unplayable. I'm gonna mark it as a 5. If you don't have at least 4 token makers, I would not even bother with this, I think. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an Ancestral Katana spell from your graveyard by sacrificing a creature in addition to paying its other costs. No. No. I don't want this. I don't want this. You think it's one of the best cards in the set? What? It's once and only during your turn. If you're talking about limited, you're probably not, that's not what this is. Basically, it allows you to turn, it basically lets you draw a bunch of bone splinters, right? But, you know what I'm talking about? You know, it's a 3 mana enchantment that the use case for it is you draw like 3 bone splinters. But like, yeah, I don't know if I want to be. I don't even like bone splinters. I'm drawing like 3 of them. I don't want any of these. I don't know about that. All right, can't all be winners in Maestros. Maestros Diabolist. 3 mana, 1/4 Death Touch haste. Whenever it attacks, if you don't control a devil token, create a tapped devil. Wait, a tapped and attacking 1/1 red devil creature token with when this creature dies. This card seems really good. Yeah, this is attacking tokens done right because if they block, you're like, good. Glad you blocked. Glad you blocked my 1/1. It doesn't print Monk Fanatic. It only makes 1. If your opponent is fine with you having a devil token, then you don't get any more. This card seems pretty good. Yeah. This is a cool card. Well, I'm gonna lose to it, but I'm gonna lose to this a ton. Obscura Ascendancy. Yeah, after it makes the devil, if your opponent just like, you know, the 1/4 is really good at blocking. 4 toughness is really, really good at blocking, for sure. Whenever you cast a spell, if its mana value is equal to 1+ number of soul counters on Obscura Ascendancy, put a soul counter on Obscura Ascendancy, then create a 2/2. If the songs are 5 or more soul counters. Okay, so I play this, it does actual nothing. Then I play a 1-drop, and then I play a 2-drop, and then I play a 3-drop, and then I play a 4-drop, and then I play a 5-drop. If I do that, then I've done the Obscure Ascendancy thing. Now, Impending Doom was a card that was good. To be clear, it wasn't Impending Doom. It was Doom, right? What was that? It was a red enchantment that had a text box. It was an Imminent Doom. This card was actually secretly good. Imminent Doom. But this is a 3 mana thing that also did nothing. And then you played like a 1 mana value card to deal 1 damage, 2 mana to do 2 damage, 3 mana to deal 3 damage. This card was actually good. But that was in a set that had like quasi flashback on cards, right? So your instants and sorceries often had 2 different mana values. So Imminent, I have fond memories. Yeah, it was called Aftermath in that set. I have fond memories of that, of Impending Doom. Here's the actual use case for this. You play this, and you play like a 1-drop and a 2-drop, and you get 2 2/2s. And that seems terrible. So, I think that's the most common use case. Unless there are creatures with flashback in the set, which I have not seen. This is not good. Obscura Interceptor. Flash Lifelink. Oh, no. No! More flash creatures! When it enters the battlefield, it connives. When it connives this way, return up to 1 target spell to its owner's hand. Tap a creature connive, draw a card, then discard a card. If you discarded a non-land, put a counter on that. Okay, wait. I think this is the first time I've seen connive on a creature, right? Is the connive the draw a card and discard a card and the act of discarding a non-land? Or is it just doing it at all? Like, if I draw a card and discard a land, do I still put a spell into his owner's hand? It's all one action. So you don't have to discard a non-land to get the output, is what you're saying. Okay. Okay, so it doesn't get a +1/+1 counter unless you discard a non-land, but if I'm casting a lightning bolt and I flash this end and I draw a card and I discard a non-land card, it's a 4/2 that returns the lightning bolt to hand. If I cast lightning bolt and I cash and this Obscure Interceptor comes into play and I draw a card and I discard a land card, I now have a 3/1 and the spell is still returned to hand. In my mind, yeah, the spell is bounced no matter. Well, the spell is not bounced no matter what, because I'm about to get to that. From what it seems, is that if you flash an Obscure Interceptor in response to a spell, and they kill this in response, the spell does not return to hand. Is that correct? That's what it looks like. Because it says when it connives in this way, and it's not in play. You think it still bounces? You still count as conniving, but it's reflexive trigger. It says in the notes for the set, it's still the source of connive? Okay. Boy, this is poor. Connive is yikes. You choose whether you bounce a spell after you loot. That's a good point, Volfe. Thank you. So, final answer from the chat. Final answer. It doesn't matter if this guy is in play or not. It doesn't matter what you discard to this. After all decisions, after you've drawn and discard a card, you may return up to one target spell to its owner's hand. That's what we've come to the conclusion is. Okay. In my mind, connive was always connive output only if you discard a non-land card. Right? To me, that just makes sense. That's just not how it is. Alright. It cannot return itself because it's not a spell when it's in play. But it's like a 4/2 flash lifelink Mystic Snake. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I always think this card is very good. I hate it. I hate that it exists because now every single time I'm thinking like, oh, my opponent's at 3 and I have 4 attackers. Can I win the game if I attack with all my creatures? Well, turns out if they have Obscure Interceptor, the answer is no. And that's not fun. Agnes the Dragon's Lash. It's a mono red card. Haste. Whenever a creature you control with haste attacks, create a tapped treasure token. You know, having read this card, I actually think that's what treasure cards should have always been. Is that treasures by default enter tapped? Because then, like, basically, Magic has not gotten better with the advent of treasures that enter the battlefield untapped and make a bunch of mana and just like cash in treasures immediately. This is how treasures should have always been. So that's cool. And yeah, this is cool. And it also works with Blitz, right? Because even if your creature doesn't normally have Blitz or doesn't normally have haste, Blitz gives them haste. So there's a ton of haste creatures in the set just like by default. I like this card. Although the problem is it's a 4-mana 3/3. And liking a card does not necessarily mean it's a good card. Because this is going to look weird to you. But this was a 3-mana 3/3 and it sucked. And it sucked. This is a 4-mana 3/3 in a format where every 4-drop has 4 toughness. I feel like this card is a trap. I think it's a trap. Yeah, I think it's missing a stat point. It needs to be a 4/3 or a 4/4. I think it's just not good enough. Yeah, just not good enough. Disappointing. This reads like an uncommon. Like this is an uncommon power level and it's a rare. Park Heights Pegasus. 2-mana 2/1 flying trample. Okay. You know what I think of Pegasus? I think of it trampling. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card if you had 2 or more creatures enter the battlefield under your control this turn. This is going to draw maybe 1 card. This is... yeah. I am not impressed by this card at all. Every single mechanic they've ever made that required you to have to play 2 spells in a turn, do it, and they've done many. They've all sucked. I doubt this is any different. You remember they've done this many times before, and it's always been bad. Always been bad. Ironcrag Pyro is maybe the only one. You're right. That was like whenever you cast 2 spells, like deal 3. Is that what it was? Yeah. Rigo, are there spells that give you 2 tokens to proc it? There probably are. At common and in green and white. But they're probably going to suck because those token makers always suck. Or were you referring to the red, green, white charm? Oh boy. Can you imagine being the designer of Cabretti Charm and being like very proud of its outputs? Be like, oh yeah, I'm real happy with how this one turned out. The red, green, white charm, every charm cycle they've ever made has always been terrible. Always been terrible. How can this make 2 tokens? Like, how long ago was this? How long ago was this? This is what, 20 years? 22 years? Whatever it was? And this made 3 tokens. 3! Yeah, why don't you scry 2? Make 2 tokens, scry 2. Enters the battlefield with a shield counter on it. Okay, so it's a mono white card. 3 mana, 2/2 shield. Whenever you attack a player or planeswalker with one or more creatures with... Whenever you attack a player or planeswalker with one or more creatures with power 1 or less... So this is a sentence that has 3 ors and has more and less on it. And it doesn't trigger off itself. This is a convoluted way to say sacrifice a citizen, draw a card. Which I don't know if a cat citizen should be doing that. Oh, you're right. It has ONE and the number 1. And it also has A in reference to the number 1. So it has ONE and 1 and A referring to 1 card. And as A twice, whenever you attack a player, draw a card if it was 1 power or less. No. You know what this kind of reminds me of Tribute to Hirobi. That's honestly what it reminds me of. It reminds me of Tribute to Hirobi for a previous set. It's like, you know, it's a creature that on turn 5 you can like sack a creature to draw a card. Sack them on 1 to draw a card. Except that doesn't make the 1/1s itself. So I'm off this one. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't know how much a 2/2 shield is worth. It seems like a 3 mana 2/2 shield is worse than a 3 mana 2/3. That's what it looks like to me. This guy seems medium. Look at the artwork for this Streetwise Mentor. Look at it. Look at the Streetwise Mentor. This fellow is gonna be so happy that he see that child on his left leg and his child on his right arm. He's going to fling them and kill them. Just fling them at the rhinos charging towards to save. No, he's taking lessons. You know who he's taking lessons from? What was he, Magenta? Is that what he was? It was a 3 mana 3/3 flyer from Strixhaven, right? No, it was a 3/3 flying for it that was in Strixhaven. Or was it a 2/3 flyer? Was it a 2/3 flyer? I think it was a 2/3 flyer, actually. Yeah, Mavenda. It reminds me of Mavenda. Where it's just like, oh yeah, yeah. The student's advocate. The student's advocate's like, you know, you really shouldn't be cheating. And then you slip him 8 mana, and he's like, but I'll let it slide this time. It's kind of this. He puts on a facade of being an advisory bird, student's advocate, but he knows how the world works. All right. This streetwise mentor, he knows how the streets work. The weak ones must be culled for the rest to survive. I can just imagine the lessons he's teaching all the younglings when he just keeps on just chucking them into the meat grinder to draw more cards. Oh man. Riveteers Ascendancy. You know what's weird is that Riveteers Ascendancy is not triggered off of the Streetwise Mentor. Yeah, should have been born rich in your next life, kid. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may return target creature card with mana value less than your mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Do this only once per turn. This seems terrible. This is just like the other one. Here's the scenario. You have like a 4-drop in your graveyard. You have a 5-drop in play. And you sacrifice your 5-drop to a casualty. You get back your 4-drop tapped. By the way, you remember how I'm tilted off about all these flash blockers? This doesn't even make a flash. This doesn't make a flash blocker because it comes into play tapped. Oh, it works with Blitz? That's not a very funny joke. What? I could have just played a creature instead of this. I'm already drawing a card off Blitz. I don't want anything to do with this. Sheeming Fence. As Sheeming Fence enters the battlefield, you may choose a non-land permanent. Activated abilities of the chosen permanent cannot be activated. It has all activated abilities of the chosen permanent except for loyalty abilities. Okay, so it's a 2-mana 2/3 that enters the battlefield and steals anything with a colon on it from a creature. This is a 2-mana 2/3 no text. Like, it does nothing against this card. It takes neither one of these abilities. It has to have a colon on it. Like, it can steal this because it has a colon. I see a sacrifice another creature and it has colon on it. So it can only steal things that have colons on it. This is 2-mana 2/3 no text. I mean, a 2-mana 2/3 is like, maybe it's a playable card. Yeah, we have Broker's Ascendancy so far. It might be Broker's Ascendancy might end up being a 9, but I think it's probably a 10. 2-mana 2/3 with potential upside. It's not the worst. It is the worst because I don't play 2-mana 2/3s in my sealed decks. So did we not talk about this earlier? That everything is a 3/3. Every 2-drop is a 3-power creature. All of them. All of them are 3-power creatures. Like, a 2/3 doesn't do anything. The 2/3 is like the worst stat line to have because it can't attack and it can't block. It doesn't do anything. Oops. This is probably a 4, honestly. What this does do is if there's mana rocks in the set, this enters the battlefield and kill other mana rocks in the set. It does kill mana rocks. Are there no mana rocks? Looks like there's no mana rocks. Oh, it enters the battlefield. Oh, wait. It takes down 1 treasure as long as this is in play. Okay, so that's what it does. Oh, wait. Mana abilities are not taken? No, no. It says activated abilities of the chosen permanent cannot be activated. So it does shut down a treasure. Yikes. Alright. When Soul of Emancipation enters the battlefield, destroy up to 3 other target non-land permanents. For each of those permanents, its controller creates a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying. Oh, this is not Terrastodon. How dare you make me think it's a Terrastodon? How dare you? How dare you make me think of the Dawn himself? The Dawn? Oh, it's Terastodon, right? There's no. Oh, what? How is it pronounced? Or how's it spelled? Terastodon? Oh yeah, there's only one R in it. Is that what it is? Yeah. Okay. That's what it was. I always think of Terra, so I think of Terra, right? Terra means Earth, and I think like, oh yeah, Terastodon breaks up the Earth. It has 2 R's on it. This is not Terastodon. This is much worse than Terastodon, but not only does this not have flying, I only give my opponent 3/3/3 flyers. Yeah, it's non-land permanents. I think the joke here is you target one of your opponent's creatures. You target one of your opponents and 2 of your own. And you can't bomb your own lands. You can't like sack 2 lands to make a 3/3. Why is it saying on land? Like if they were worried about it being a reanimation target, just make it a cast trigger or something. This is. It can't even shoot itself. You're right. You can't even shoot itself. It doesn't even have a shield counter, first strike, flying, haste, trample, anything. That being said, you're probably gonna play this. It's got a great stat line. Gotta be careful of giving your opponent 2/3/3s and yourself 1/3/3. As your opponent kills your 1/3/3, it's disastrous, right? 6 mana flyer coming at 6 mana or 6 power and flyers coming at you. That's disastrous. Yeah, turns your 3 treasures into 3/3 flyers. But how'd you cast this without using treasures anyway? Yeah, it's probably amazing. I'm probably way off base on this. It's probably an 8. It's just this could have been a 10, right? And it's like not a 10. It could have been a 10. Yeah, I could have given it reach. Maybe it's a 7. I'll put it as a 7. I'm willing to be wrong on Soul Emancipation. It might just be completely amazing. Wait, how does this work? Wait a minute. Yeah, Vofate, I was just about to give me some credit. It allows you to turn your shield counters into 3/3 flyers. Because it prevents the destroy. And the creation of the 3/3 is not contingent on the creature actually dying. So it allows you to blow up your own shield counters for angels. So maybe this is just 7 mana 5/7 make 3/3/3s. The goal is to destroy your own stuff 3 times, like 3 of your own. If you have 3 shield counters on one thing, you can't choose the same thing 3 times. But yeah, we figured it out. Numberless work. This caches in shield counters for angels. Okay, we figured it out. You ask if you destroy, can you choose 3 permanents, and then if one of them leaves, do you still get a 3/3? It's a good question. I'm going to assume that if you target like 3 treasures and you sack 3 treasures for mana, you don't get any tokens. You don't get any angels. I would assume so. You think there needs to be 1 in play? You have to look at the rulings for this card. I would assume if you choose like 2 treasures and a shielded thing, and you set the 2 treasures for mana, do you get 3/3/3s? I don't think so. Do you think if all the others remain, you still get the angels? Really? Okay, it says Solterra Luna looked at the FAQ. Okay. When Toulouse Clever Conductor enters the battlefield, it connives. So okay. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, exile them from your. Oh, wait, what? No, I just put it there. Put it back. When Toulouse dies, put the cards exiled from it into their. Oh, okay. Boy, this card is just a ride. It's taking me for a train ride. I love it. This is a cleverly named card. I like it. It grabs you with draw a card. Like, no, put it back. I want it in my graveyard. Oh no, you can give it back to my hand. Okay, no, I like that better. Oh yeah. Yeah, it puts us on quite an emotional journey. For flavor-wise, this is a home run flavor-wise. I love it. This card seems quite good. It seems like a 3. It's a 3/1 draw card minimum. that may draw you even more cards when it dies. It's like 3-mon, enter the battlefield, loot, and then when it dies, draw a card. And it could be better than that. In fact, you're incentivized for it to be better. You're incentivized for this to be a 3-mana 4/2. And when it dies, draw a card, and it's better than that. Right? Yeah. Yeah, the only thing this is missing is Flash. Yeah, I like this card. This card seems quite good. Yeah, seems quite good. Unleash the Inferno. Deals 7 damage to target creature or planeswalker. When it deals excess damage this way, destroy a target artifact or enchantment. Okay, so it's always going to do excess damage. Destroy a target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls with mana value less than or equal. So your opponent has an Ascendancy in play. Your opponent has Broker's Ascendancy in play, and they have a 4/4, because they clearly have a 4/4, because they have Broker's Ascendancy. And you cast your Unleash the Inferno, you kill the 4/4 and the Ascendancy. Sold. This card seems really good. Like, really, really good. It's an instant. Yeah, this card seems really good. I think this is going to be a 2-for-1 a lot of the time. Yeah. And it's going to be a good 2-for-1, because artifacts and enchantments are going to have really good text boxes. I would splash for this. If I was like a green, red, white deck, I would splash white for this, or splash black for this. How does this work with shields? That's a great question. It probably doesn't. I know how trample and protection works. Like, if you have a 2/2 protection from green and I attack with a 5/5 trample, you take 3. I assume that the term for excess damage is anything over the toughness of the target. Anything over, like, the toughness minus the damage of the target. Assigns lethal. Well, Frodo Vest, that's not the question. The question is, if you target a shielded creature, do you still get that disenchant? Like, if I target a shielded 1/1 creature, do I still get that disenchant? I think you do. I think you do. The creature doesn't die. Yeah, Center. Protection is worded the same way, and they've talked about XX damage before. Yeah, Unleash the Inferno says it doesn't have to die, yeah. Well, no, it does. Says when it deals excess damage this way. You know, it's a good question. You think it should work just like Indestructible and Trample? It's a good question. Look in the FAQ. I think that if you target a shield creature, you should still get the disenchant, but I'm willing to be wrong on this. Still, that doesn't make the card worse. The card is still great. It's not in the FAQ? Well, it should be. But that is a really good question. It's a good question. Void Rend. Destroy target non-land permanent. Blech. It's a murder. It's an 8. The baseline for destroy target creature, 3 mana is 8. No, Slam Dunk. You know what you can look at? There was a blue-red giant that had a ton of rulings questions called Agar. So if you look at the FAQ at Agar, I think you might find the answer to the question that we just asked. Maybe on Agar it says it. You think you don't get the? You don't think you get a disenchant? Yeah, we're almost done with the gold cards. Ziatora's Envoy. 4 mana, 5/4 trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top card of your library. You may play a land from the top of your library or cast a spell with mana value less than or equal to the damage dealt from the top card of your library without paying its mana cost. If you don't, put it into your hand. Okay, so it's a 5 mana 5/4 tramp. It's a 4 mana 5/4 trample that always draws a card on hit. It also has Blitz, 5 mana. I don't know. I don't think this bypasses. Does anybody know if, in the FAQ if this bypasses land per turn? I don't think it does. It should not. Yeah, I'm gonna guess that it does not bypass 1 land per turn. So if you've already played a land, you can't play the land off it. No, it says you may play a land from the top of your library or cast a spell. Yeah, it's so basically it has a lot of words. Here's what it actually does: 4 mana 5/4 trample. If it hits a player, draw a card. if that mana value, if that card has mana value equal to or less than the damage you dealt to draw that card, then you can just play it for free. So baseline, you attack them for 5. If your top card is a 5 card, you can play it. I don't know quite how this works. You can't... Okay, no. This is weird, right? Okay, wait. Back up a second. Get rid of Agar. Back up a second. Trample bypasses shield. We already talked about that. If they block with a 3/3 shield, you deal 2 damage to your opponent, you still do this. It's turn 5. I play this on turn 4. It is turn 5. I attack with this. They didn't block. Whatever. They took 5. And it's turn 5, and I have not played a land. There's a land on top of my deck. So this is saying I put the land into play in my end of combat step? Is that what it is saying? Because that's what I'm reading. It counts as your land play, and it comes into play at the end of combat step. Or the combat damage step, right. So it's weird. It's weird. Like, I don't know why it even has that thing on it, right? Like, think about it. Why does it even let you do that? Like, what is different than me just drawing a card? If there's land on top, just drawing it and just going to my second main phase and playing it, right? There's like no... I don't understand why, unless it bypasses the 1 land per turn, there's no reason to have that text on the card. Yeah, there's like no reason to ever use the land ability, right? Unless it bypasses 1 land per turn, there's no reason to ever do the land ability. So I don't understand this card. Oh, there's like a Narset, it bypasses Narset? It doesn't trigger like 2 cards per turn or something, maybe? That is bizarre. That is completely bizarre. It also does not technically draw. You're right, because it goes from exile to your hand. It doesn't actually ever draw the card. The card is just worded so bizarrely, it doesn't have to. Regardless, it's a great card. Oh, it doesn't go from exile? What does it say? Look at the top card of your library, you may play a land from the... Oh, it goes from the top of your library into your hand. That's totally not drawing a card. If only there was a word in the game that we could use. When a card goes from the top of my deck into my hand, if only there was something short and sweet and we could use it all the time. It's a legally distinct term. You can take Narset to court and you'll win. I didn't talk about this card has Blitz. It's kind of cool that you can like blitz this and there's a spell on top. You play it for free, right? If they don't block this, and you draw a card when this dies, and you already drew a card. We got it to be technical here. We didn't draw the card, but you know, if there's like a 3 or 4 mana card on top of your deck, you get to play it and draw a card when this dies into turn and blitz. So the blitz on this is really cool. 4 mana, 3/3 flying trample. The banned cards with trample, huh? I guess Falco and the 2/1 went to the same school, huh? The Park Heights Pegasus. Itty bitty flying tramples. I mean, look at the top card of your library anytime. Okay. You may cast spells from the top of your library by removing a counter from a creature you control in addition to paying their costs. So you can remove +1/+1 counters, you can remove shield counters. From Connive, right? Connive puts +1/+1 counters on your cards. Most importantly, this does not allow you to play lands. That's a pretty big downside. Pretty big downside. You can remove -1/-1 counters on your cards, I guess, yeah. Yeah, you may get 1 card out of it. It's a bird. Wait a minute. It's a demon? Wait. I thought this was like a great unifier of the citizens, and it has all these birds that are flying, and it seems like it's in like a really lofty position. It's a demon. it's a Bant demon. All right. Demons make. You're right. Demons make packs. It all checks out. You're totally right. Classic benevolent demon. It's what demons do. That's right. Okay. Fair enough. Maybe that's why it has trample, because it has the demon blood in it. But yeah, the fact that it doesn't remove lands is kind of iffy. Yeah, it's a 4-mana 3/3 draw card a lot of the time, I think. When it's not, it's a 3/3 like flying trample shield. So it's pretty good. Now this is a demon. Look at that. A red green white demon. Jetmir Nexus of Revels. Oh yeah, it has synergy. Falco has synergy with the Envoy. Yeah. Totally does. If you have black, red, green, green, white, blue available. Creatures you control get +1/0 and have vigilance. As long as you control 3 or more creatures. Creatures you control have +1/+0 and trample as long as you control 6 or more creatures. Creatures you control have +1/0 and double strike as long as you have. So if you have 9 creatures, it's an 8/4 double strike trample for 4 mana. Cat Demon. I think step 1 is easy. I think this is baseline going to be a 4 mana 6/4 vigilance that gives 2 other creatures +1/0 and vigilance. I think that's baseline. I think 3 creatures is relatively trivial to do. +1/0 and tramples, whatever. It'll happen, but probably not very often. And 9 is whatever. It's not going to happen. Although I do like, if you have 8 creatures in play, it's just like super overrun, right? For 4 mana. This card seems really good. You wouldn't play it in a token deck. You play it in your 23 best cards you open sealed deck, because it's a really good card. Yeah, I don't know how they're not already dead if you have 9 creatures, yeah. When Lord Xander, the Collector, enters the battlefield, target opponent discards half the cards in their hand rounded down. That means if they have 1 card in their hand, they discard 0. If they have 3 cards in hand, they discard 1. If they have 5 cards in hand, they discard 2. Alright, whenever it attacks, defending player mills half their library rounded down. So they have like 25 cards in their deck, they mill 12 cards. And then when it dies, target opponent sacrifices half the non-land permanents they own control. So if they control 1 non-land permanent, they sacrifice 0. If they have 3 non-land permanents, they sacrifice 1. If they have 7 non-land permanents, they sacrifice 3. Seems really good. The problem I have with this card, actually, is that the second part of it seems like pretty big downside. Because it gives your opponent threshold when it attacks. Which seems like it might enter the battlefield and give your opponent threshold, and definitely when it attacks, it gives your opponent threshold. It's good. Yeah, I think this is gonna probably end up, they're gonna have 2 non-land permanents. It's gonna enter the battlefield and make them discard 1 card, and then when it dies, when they kill it, they're gonna sack a creature. They're gonna sack a non-land permanent. One of their 3 non-land permanents. Which I think is pretty good for 7 mana, because there was a 6 mana 3/3 flyer that when it entered the battlefield, your opponent discards a card and you draw a card. It was like 4 blue black, and that card would like dominated the format. That's kind of what this is. Although that was an uncommon and this is a mythic, so. Meeting of the 5. Exile the top 10 cards in your library, 7 mana, or 8 mana. May cast spells with exactly 3 colors from among them this turn. Add 2 of each mana. Spend this mana only to cast spells with exactly 3 colors. This is a 1. Don't ever play this. Holy moly. Why doesn't it just add 15 mana? Why doesn't it add 3 mana of each? To get with all the 3s? Why is it just 10 mana instead of 15? I don't know. Casualty X. This copy is not legendary and has starting loyalty X. As you cast a spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power X. when you do copy the spell, the copy becomes a token. 1 black, red, 3. Loyalty. Alright, so +1, each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. If you control a demon or devil, you also gain 2 life. Even if they discard a card, you still gain 2 life. Okay. Create a 1/1 red devil token with whenever this creature dies, it deals no damage to any target, which works with the +1, because the +1 wants to look at devils or demons, and he makes a devil and he minus it. And -7, target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life. Okay. Cool card. So how is this gonna play out? You're gonna play this on turn 4? You play this on turn 2 if you sack your 2-drop, you minus them both. You get a pair of 1/1s, and you have 2 planeswalkers that make your opponent like lose 2 life each return. And you gain 2 life a turn. That's pretty busted. You can -2 the original and +1 the copy. You could do that. If you like sack a 1/1, you sack like your 2-mana 1/1, you make a pair of 1/1s or something on turn 2. Turn 3, like you tick up the one that has low loyalty and you tick down the one that has high loyalty. Or if you just like sack a 7-drop, you just draw 7 cards, right? Sack a 7-power creature. Yeah, it does seem like this is going to be really hard card to beat if your opponent's on the play and plays at turn 3 and sacrifices a creature. It seems like you're just not going to win that game. Oh, you can like giant growth your creature, then sack it post combat. Yeah, maybe. It seems like you're going to win that game anyways if your opponent has to block your giant creature. I mean, I think we've just basically come down to that. As long as you are on the play, this card seems amazing. If you're on the draw, this card seems less amazing. Well, Jace was terrible, center. To be clear, like, Jace was, like, 2 planeswalkers, and that card sucked. Was it? It was this guy? Yeah. This guy sucked. It's like a 9. I mean, if it's a really bad top deck, it's a really bad... You know, it's probably not a 9. It's a really bad top deck. It does nothing if you're behind. And I think if you're not on the play... I think, like, half the games this card is not going to do anything. Which means it can't be a 9. We're not talking about Constructed. Obviously, Constructed has different applications. But... Cool card. Raffine Scheming Seer. White, blue, black, 1/4, Ward... Wait. Ward 1? I thought this was a shield set. Whenever you attack, target attack... Wait. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature connives X, where X is the number of attacking creatures. Okay. Alright. So, you play this, you attack with a creature you already have, you connive 1. This doesn't have to... So it has like quasi-haste, right? And it's like reverse exalted. Yeah, it's like... So, and I assume connive X means you draw 1 and discard 1 for every one of your creatures that is attacking. You don't draw 3, discard 1. You draw 1, discard 1, draw 1, discard 1, draw 1, discard 1. That's how I'm reading this. No, it actually says in the parentheses, it's draw 3, discard 1. Oh, it's draw 3, discard 3 in 1 action. Okay, that makes it easier. Okay, see, it's not just a bunch of separate triggers. That's good. That's good. So you attack with 4 creatures, you draw 4, discard 4. So this thing seems like it's a dangerous game. Because that's a lot of deck damage. Like, I can foresee a scenario where this fellow just kills you. Like, kills the player. Because you're now on a clock. That is mandatory. It is a mandatory trigger. Like, if you have 5 cards in your deck, well, you can't attack anymore. Is what you get to attack with 1 creature like 3 times, and that's it. This is a dangerous game. Yeah, it's a very demon-esque. It's a good flavor. Very demon-esque. It's a very dangerous game. I like it. It's good. The Ward 1 makes this a 9, I think. Like, it enters the battlefield and loots a ton. And the Ward 1, like, Ward is so powerful. You get 1 trigger for each Like, if you attack with 4 creatures, there's 1 trigger that draws 4, discards 4. And if you discard like 2 lands and 2 non-lands, you get 2 counters. It's a 10, it's not a 10. It's a 9. Like, a value engine like this is a 9. 10s are like overarching, like massive effects in the game. Like, they're broken ascendancy. Although this might not be a 10, this might be a 9. This is up there. This is up there on pretty unbelievably busted cards. Zayator the Incinerator. 6 mana, 6/6 flying. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, it deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, and you create 3 treasure tokens. So the joke here is you sacrifice a blitz creature? I guess? You don't draw a card, though. You get 3 untapped treasure tokens. Yeah, I mean, this is a really good card. It's a demon dragon. It lets you bone splinters, basically. Oh, you would draw from blitz? It doesn't have to draw to. Doesn't have to die to its own trigger. I actually did not know that. Because none of these cards actually have blitz on them, right? Which card even has blitz? I haven't actually seen the wording on blitz in any card. Does this card have it? No. Yeah, none of these cards. I actually haven't seen the wording on blitz in any of these cards. The Viashino? No, the Viashino doesn't actually say blitz. It doesn't have the wording for blitz on it. There's no reminder text on what it does. So I actually don't know what blitz does. If you say it when blitz works with this, then I believe it. Here, we can look at black. Surely there's a black creature with blitz. Okay, here we go. If you cast a spell for its blitz cost, it gains haste, and whenever this creature dies, draw a card. Oh, okay. So if it dies, no matter where it died. Got it. We figured it out. Yeah, it's a dragon. Lets you, like, bone splinters, basically. At your end step, which I don't know if I really... Like, if they block your blitz creature and it dies in combat, they don't even get to do the thing, right? I don't know what I'm doing with my 3 treasures on my end step, but... It's whatever. It's a 6/6 flyer for 6. With the ability that probably doesn't matter. I'm glad that it can't eat itself. This is a what I think this card is like much worse than something like this. Because it costs way more and it doesn't like do anything when it comes into play, and has to like live to your end step, and it does something else to sack, and like why would you want to sack something huge to deal damage to something? I don't know. Not a fan. It's like a mediocre thing. Oh, it's any target. It flings. You're right. It's not just creatures. It is any target. Yeah, but you can't eat yourself, right? You can sack your 5 high to deal 5 to them. You're right, it is flying. You're right. It's not just creatures. I guess. Yeah, he can't eat himself. Not a hot dog. Not a hot dog confirmed. Hot dog check. Not really, Professor Crocodile, because this costs 6 mana, and your opponent's likely gonna have a removal spell in their hand and untapped mana on turn 6, whereas on turn 3, like it has ward 1, and it has like an immediate impact on the board during your attack step. Very different cards. And this requires you to also have something else in play already. That's big, right? So the best card we've seen so far is probably Broker's Ascendancy, but I think this demon is up there. Yeah, the demon is up there. And Evelyn is up there too. Sacrificing a citizen for 3 treasures is not a good deal. What am I going to do with the treasures? I've already cast my 6-drop. I clearly have perfect mana because I cast my 6-drop. You think it's better that you think the dragon is better than Xander? I actually don't think it is. I actually think Xander's better than a dragon. Because Xander also has like an on attack ability. But it may be downside, but it also has like a loose play ability. If your opponent has not this. If your opponent has Void Rend in hand, which one would you rather have? Would you rather have like the Incinerator? Or would you rather have the Lord Xander, right? And Sealed, again, everybody's playing everything that they have in their pool that they opened that has destroy target creature they're playing. So, and here's the thing. High-level sealed players know how to ration their removal. Rationing removal means you don't kill things that you can just block down, right? Unless you play something worth killing, there's no reason to kill it. They can just block it down or whatever. So, like 6 and 7 mana cards especially, because you don't actually play them on turn 6, you actually play them on like turn 8 or turn 9 or turn 10. Which means your opponent has seen 15 cards in their deck. They probably drew at least 2 Terminates. Like 2 ways to kill creatures. And they're going to have one to deal with it. The defensive cards look really strong in this set. I hope the aggro cards can keep up. It doesn't, like... All the 4-drops have 4 toughness, and it's so hard to get through a 4 toughness blocker on turn 4, it seems. Like, your 2s and 3s are 3/3s. Like, your 2-drops are all 3/3s, they're not 4/4s. Xander needs to swing like 3 times. Yeah, but you can kill your Xander yourself, and you can probably, like, sacrifice this to casualty, one of your casualty spells, or whatever. Like, the sacking for this is non-zero. Like, if they have 5 permanents, they lose 2 permanents. It's like, you know, not non-zero. Although, I guess it doesn't really work very well with casualty removal spells, because they just sacrifice whatever you're targeting. That's actually it actually works pretty poorly with casualty. Like, if they have like 2 2/2s and like 3 5/5s, and you have like a casualty deal 2, you can't just kill the 2 2/2s and have them sack their 5/5s. It's not how it works. They'll just, you know, sacrifice the 2 2s to the sack trigger. But I feel like the card that is so far the coolest card, the card that I enjoyed reading from start to finish was the Clever Conductor. I actually, this card was a trip. I loved reading this card. I loved it. Great card, very, very flavorful. And card that is the funniest so far is Streetwise Mentor. Because I think the most common use case for this card is you just chucking your poor citizens into the meat grinder and have your opponent just block with a 4/4. And the artwork, it has like 2 orphans on his hand and just on like his limbs. He's just throwing the limbs and throwing the orphans at them. So he's very streetwise. Yes, and the 1/1/1, yeah. When you attack a player, so like the wording on this is a trip. A player or planeswalker with 1 ONE or more creatures with power the number 1 or less, draw a card. So it has A referring to the number 1 ONE, and the number 1, and more, and less, and 3 different ors in one sentence. There has to have been a better way to do this. I can't imagine in other languages it's any better. But that's gold. Some interesting cards. I really don't like how many flash cards there are. It's really frustrating to me as a player who's going to play a ton of this format in both sealed and drafts. Like, you have to constantly be questioning does my opponent have a flash blocker? There's so many punishing flash blockers. It's really frustrating. I'm not a fan of that. And I'm not a fan of the blue-black-red charm existing. Because the blue-black-red charm existing means your opponent can get Threshold at any time. Because this looks at the top 5 cards of your library, puts 1 of them into the hand, the rest in the graveyard, and this spell itself goes to the graveyard. So five different cards are going to the graveyard. You could get Threshold off of just your card. Your opponent could have 0 cards in their graveyard and get Threshold off of 1 card. The fact that this exists is so frustrating. Like, nothing is safe. And that vampire lady too is just, I don't remember what it was called. Evelyn. This card is so frustrating. It's a 5-mana 2/5 flash. I'm just gonna get blasted. 100% I'm just gonna get blasted by this card. There's nothing I can do about it. Looks like it might be fun to play. I think the big question that's on everybody's mind is how good the mana fixing is, right? And like whether these are enough mana fixing to be able to just do whatever you want. And I don't know the question to that unless I play some games. These seem to be like they're trying to be like a linchpin of the format. That everybody's going to have tons of mana fixing because everybody's going to have these like dorky 5-mana plays in their deck, 5 and 6 mana plays that also are trying to slow down the format because people are spending 2 mana to like get to Utopia their land up as opposed to advancing their board. But that could be really frustrating at times, right? Because all the 2-drops are 3. We looked at them. All the multicolor 2-drops are 3 power. All of them. So that can be really expensive to fix your mana. This Regulator seems like it is probably pretty bad. It can't block anything. Yeah, the whole joke behind these cards is that they're like land cyclers, except you don't draw, except they're not actually lands. Like land cyclers are virtual mana. These are not virtual mana. Like if you have like 16 lands and three land cyclers in your deck plays like it has 19 lands in it. If you have 16 lands and these fellows in your deck plays like it has 16 lands in it, which is bad. So, I don't know about that. Don't know about that. But we'll see. Definitely take some games to do it.